Hey, this is Aaron Price, the CEO of Tech United. I am very excited for today's live session, talking about go-to-market, about when to raise capital, when to shut things down. Joining me today is Tom Sauer. He is the founder of Mile Square Labs. Tom, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Aaron.
I didn't actually have a title. Is it founder, CEO, all things running?
Yeah, managing partner, founder, CEO, chief cook and bottle washer. I believe you all know those titles well over at Tech United.
I sure do. You have a pretty storied background at Living Social, running sales at Fundera, having raised $5 million yourself. So we've got a lot of your own experience to lean on with some of the things that have brought you to Mile Square Labs.
Yeah, that's right. Mile Square Labs actually started from Fundera, which is essentially kayak for small business loans. When I exited there, the company was around $10 million in revenue, and really got pointed towards the investors that were part of Fundera to go see if I could help unlock some of their portfolio companies. And with that, and my co-founder Preston, we formed Mile Square Labs around 2017.
Inspired by the Mile Square that I am standing in today. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, Mile Square Labs was started in Hoboken. We still near and dear to our hearts. Our families were raised there, and it really is such a unique opportunity and space. We're so close to Manhattan and still very much part of New Jersey. So we love Hoboken.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being part of our Uplift mentorship program. I know that you are a mentor to a few different up-and-coming founders. We appreciate that. Let's dig in on some of the things that you've learned along the way in some of these experiences. So let's start with on sales generally. I'm going to go through kind of raising money, the sales process, when to pivot. But what's the number one thing, especially when it comes to the pitch, that you hear people get right, and more importantly, that they get wrong?
Yeah, great question. I think the number one thing is pitching what your product does, the features of your product versus solving that repeatable pain for the investor, for the customer, for the client. What your product does is not as important as what the product solves. And when you're doing that, right, you can do that over and over again. What's the problem? What is the solution? And then I think to wrap that up, it would be, how do you prove that in numbers? Is there proof in numbers, whether that's from the macro environment because you're looking to start the project and you know that there is a need, so you've sourced some accurate information to prove that, or you have, in better case, real life customer examples.
So how do you work with business leaders to help them craft the narrative? And I've been particularly interested lately on the idea of the features versus the benefits. People tend to want to share with you all the great features of the product. That's not really what people are looking for. And so how do you work with folks to help craft what's an effective pitch?
Sure. I think what's important to remember is the pitch is one part of the overall arc of your company's history. And so making it simply about having the pitch land is not it. We need to make sure that we are eliciting excitement on the other side at the end of that pitch and answering the so what question. Because if you are actually in the early stages of your product, whether it's something that's already in the market or something that you're trying to will into existence, you have to answer the question of, so what? Why is this important? The other thing that I would touch on is there's something to be said about building your credibility early. Why are you the right person to solve this problem? And you should really be speaking to that through the intelligence that you lay out for your story. And I think the wrinkle that I would put on top of that is we often pitch from this myopic view where we've lived in this minute industry for years and years and years. And we have to flip that to the skeptical stranger and make sure that our pitch narrative actually applies in all areas.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So let's get to some specific actionable thinking here, or draw that down one level. there's a lot to communicate, even in just the comments you just shared, right? How do you build trust and credibility right out of the gate? How do you address the problem, therefore your elegant solution? And then how do you do this in a way where it's so, even more so now, easy to lose people's attention and interest? So we can talk maybe in this, you feel free to change the example, but I'm thinking about just a fundraising pitch deck. What do you think is the narrative? How many slides? I mean, even specifics on lots of text, little text, imagery, videos. How do people actually convey this effectively to, depending on their goal, get the next meeting, get the check, get the sale?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot there.
There's a lot. That could be the whole rest of the conversation, but go ahead.
Absolutely. Right. Let's just say you're looking for the minimum effective dose with your presentation. You have half as much time as you think you do, and half as much attention being paid to where it is that you're going. So 7 to 10 slides in order to get the next sit down, I believe, is perfectly appropriate. Remember, we are framing the way that the world exists today and the problem that is very, very common. And there's a difference between the investor or person on the other side of that pitch saying, you're right and that's right. You want to get to a that's right problem. Can
you just clarify what you mean by that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So, most small businesses do not have a very strong relationship with their traditional banking deposit institution. I'm going back quite a ways now, so my figures might be off, but Bank of America typically considers a small business to have somewhere around $20 million in revenue, when in actuality, 95% or more of businesses are under $1 million. And so therefore, when they do have a situation where they need to raise money and or extend a line of credit, there's no opportunity or avenue for them. So that business needs to go online to a world that is very obfuscated and gray when it relates to what they're paying, how much they're paying back, interest, etc. So building a sort of search engine for financial products, for education and information for small business owners, while allowing them and walking them through the funding process, is why Fundera existed in the first place.
And so, but the idea of getting them to say, the that's right, you are right idea.
Yes.
How would you clarify the difference between those?
The that's right is something to the effect of it's a universal truth. Okay. I believe that AI is something that people are vastly uneducated on right now. In fact, they don't even know that it's coming, right? And so by building a mathnasium for AI and targeting it towards mid-stage corporate adults, you can find, we'll be able to upskill a bunch of entrepreneurs and mid-level corporate executives. And you can say, okay, you're right. But if I said AI in the next 3 to 5 years is going to drastically change the job market, that's right.
Yeah.
You're right is when someone doesn't necessarily they're not on your side of the table. That's right is we're in firm agreement there.
Yeah. By the way, is that an idea? I happen to agree with that idea. Are you or someone building that?
Anybody that would like to take that idea and run with it, I would love to partner with you on it. Yes, we are kicking it around internally. Yeah,
I do think there is a real opportunity, because we still see, we are heavily embedded using AI in everything. But what we learn from the market is people are still figuring out what to do quite a bit. Switching to that theme, how can people use AI to enhance their presentation, their go-to-market and their sales strategy?
The easiest answer here is to go backwards. Instead of providing, help me make a pitch deck for my product, you need to prompt the machine as if it were Newark Venture Partners, right? As if you're sitting at the partner meeting, and you can have the AI run that role play scenario for you. There's no longer the acceptable sort of excuse that you're not quite sure what you're getting yourself into when you're looking to build a business, raise funds, or talk to investors. You can set up these scenarios now where your repetitions should be all done by the time you get to the table to make your pitch.
Love that, by the way. And I the accessibility of these tools is so simple, and it's sometimes free. And so I hope that entrepreneurs and founders and small business owners take advantage of these things, because you can do so much in exactly that way.
Aaron, if you are serious about building your business, then you should take any type of doom scrolling that you do and look at it as you're taking money away from your business, because you should be taking that time and spend the $20 a month for the extra subscription so you don't run out of token usage, right? And really work with it and challenge it, because it's accelerating at a rate, I think, that it's phenomenal.
It's insanity. It's the most exciting thing for me. I think it's one of the most exciting times ever, because you can get so much done with so little. You can learn so much so quickly. First, just curious, what is your tool of choice?
So right now, I tried them all. For about a month, I really committed to my own Claude bot, because I wanted to figure it out from a very basic level. I do not belong on the command line interface or inside the terminal. So I've shifted to Claude, where there's co-work available and task generation, and they're shipping products and features at such an incredible rate that I found that to be really good, and probably what I'll stick with.
I was a pretty hardcore OpenAI ChatGPT user. Still like the tool a lot. I think Gemini in the last 2 months has really accelerated, especially image and video generation. And even if you use Google Docs, it's a handy way to get them. But Claude, I think for me, has become the front runner. And I would say I have learned Claude code and deployed quite a bit, and I've never really deployed any code before. It's totally wild. So for those listening, like, if you are unsure, part of the beauty of this is you can just ask it, what do I do? Teach me this, treat me like I'm a middle schooler, and it will walk you through the process, including how I deployed, on Git and Versal, apps and websites and things. So I hope, if there's one key takeaway, like, get your hands dirty on those things. I think that's a great point to think about. If you're doom scrolling, you could be, doing things productively with AI.
Right. And for those of us that are trying to get things going and gain traction, there's no better way to make the mistakes than in front of these machines, because they don't care.
Yeah.
And I've often found that you are going to find the same, there might be some aha moment inside of those conversations, but a lot of times they're going to play out a lot of times in the parameters that you have in front of you. And what we're looking for anyway is pattern recognition as founders and as entrepreneurs anyway. And so there's a lot of work that you can do, ahead of time to get those patterns recognized.
How do you, when you think about the go-to-market function of this, you have someone like, let's just use your AI Mathnasium idea. How far can someone get, let's say AI and otherwise? What are some of the scrappy methodologies you recommend for early customer discovery and potentially early sales?
Well, look, I think the right now, the gap between like your idea and that repeatable motion, it has nothing to do with like the investors or your deck, right? It is about that. And what's so great is like that New Jersey tenacity that we are so known for, being embedded in between DC and Philly and New York City, right? And so you treat the machines as if they are your interns, your employees. And so you have to go from this is all on me into a systems level thinking mode. for the example that I'm thinking of, for my mentees who are in the medical device space down in South Jersey, they're particularly calling on pediatricians, ENTs, hospitals, insurance carriers. It's a very, very big undertaking, but you have to start somewhere. You know what where you could start is just by dumping all of these thoughts into ChatGPT and say, hey, help me understand and prioritize where I should go next. Because what we have, in these early stages is optionality with our pitch, with our areas, with our time. And that can very quickly lead to you running out of time, running out of money. And so using these tools to sort of really force stratification and prioritization is important. And then on top of that, who are the 10 nearest pediatricians to my house? Route them so that I can see them on Tuesday. Please pull backgrounds on all of them and give me something, personal to say to them when I walk into the office. That's a pretty easy example.
Yeah. Even though we do this every day, I still get excited every time we do it because I think it is so wild. What is, and it is, to your point earlier, changing so rapidly. The things that we can do today, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, wildly different. It's very, very cool. You had been a founder who raised a bunch of money to build a business. It didn't work out the way you had hoped. What were some of the key lessons in that experience for you?
Yeah. I think for that one is, I saw what happens, right, when you have a front row seat, and it's that failure really taught me probably more than any of the successes that I've had. There is a lot that you need to do in terms of controlling the narrative when you are at that stage. And I think we lost a little bit of control over that narrative and the pressure that comes with that. We could not build that engine before the clock ran out. And, the lessons there, I think, are many, but, full 360-degree transparency with your investors all the way through the process, because when you do want to make a switch or a change, whether they agree with it or not, doesn't mean that you have to, do what they say, right? But I think the last thing that you want is to catch anybody off guard, as in a critical time.
What was the short story of how the narrative got away from you? What happened there?
Short story there is, when you're tackling an industry that is as large as the one that we were tackling, what
was the business idea?
HIMSS for sleep apnea. Okay. Great. So in the front door, we were able to educate, test, treat people for sleep apnea. But the idea was just more focused on the mandibular advancement device, or the mouth guard, versus the CPAP machine. And running a business where somebody comes in the front door and you can treat them with a CPAP machine and or a mouth guard is a completely different business than just selling the mouth guard. It's a different TAM.
What year was this?
2023.
Yeah.
2023.
There are now some winners. How do you, I've had ideas where things have gone sideways and seen other people come out and win the market. How do you feel about that? What you see in the market now for that. I mean, I happen to know some of those businesses.
It will, you have to really have a firm conviction that it will exist, right? And if it's not us, it's going to be somebody, right? But why not us?
Yeah.
We built a beautiful, beautiful machine. I think just in terms of the macro environment and the timing, it just wasn't right, for us. And so I stepped away from the business in the first quarter of 2025. And, again, it's one of those things where some very big companies are trying and failing to capitalize on what is essentially because, you have to have a medical doctor to diagnose the sleep apnea. And then you actually have to have a specialty dentist in order to fulfill the product. And to do this all virtually online or with an embedded local network it's not, it's not an easy undertaking.
Yeah. Are there, if you were building that business today, are there things that you would use AI to, like, based on the rest of this, the conversation we've had before this, how would you try to get to that answer differently with the tools available to you today?
We were not building the company in an AI first way because it was 2023.
Yeah,
Which
of
sounds
course.
so wild that 3 years ago it was a completely different time. So today when I talk to founders that are building from day one, we're asking questions that are way different. Not what CRM to use, right? But the necessity of a CRM in general, right? Not how many salespeople do we hire, but what is the profile of that salesperson, and how do they extend their own? How do we give them 8 arms instead of 2?
Yeah. We're talking about go to market more broadly, but how specifically can go to market be different for like the Main Street small business operator versus like the digital e-commerce business owner?
Yeah, I don't know that they are that different in a sense of there's some real like main universal principles, right? Map it to the money, right? Who is saying yes? What are they saying yes to? How did they decide? And how do we reach them at the lowest cost possible, right? Well, whether you are selling, hot dogs on the street corner, or you're building a new software to tackle, the back office of a medical practitioner's office, right? There are a certain number of steps to get you to the money in your bank account. You may not know who it is today, or you may, hopefully you have some element of an idea. There are maps out there on the web, that you can just kind of steal, where you're mapping that buying process. And that is the most important thing, because otherwise you're just having a bunch of like first weeks over and over again, right?
Which can be very draining. What do you think that, I know you're part of this New Jersey community. We're very appreciative of that. For those who are interested in finding a mentor like Tom, or possibly Tom himself, make sure you check out the URL that's scrolling below here. But what do you think that those who are not really paying attention or aren't in our market may not appreciate about the New Jersey tech community?
I mean, the phrase is proximity equals power, or, we are so close to all of it without having the overhead and the stress of being in Manhattan, or being in Philadelphia. There's a very vibrant venture ecosystem in New Jersey as well. And to say nothing about, right, the telecommunications and healthcare industry, where every one of them likely has their own venture arm as well. So I know there is no better home than New Jersey for startups and for entrepreneurs, because the mentality is so rich with getting stuff done.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate your leadership in the community, your mentorship with the Uplift program, and hope that we can continue to count on you to mentor other folks, and hopefully inspire people with some really good ideas here on how they can build their businesses faster and smarter. Any parting advice for people who are getting going, maybe feeling a little frustrated, trying to figure things out, and maybe need a little boost?
Listen, it's very noisy out there today, and a majority of the noise is of the negative frequency. So you have to really train yourself as an entrepreneur to have positive thoughts, and already pat yourself on the back because of the path that you chose to take, and keep up the good work.
On that specific point, I highly recommend people search for things for when they are doom scrolling. If you start searching for like inspirational quotes and like happy stories and all these like cheesy little phrases, your feed will change.
Right.
And your thoughts become your emotions, become your actions. It actually does kind of change your whole outlook on things. I've done this a few times over because I'm like, I got to get out of this feed. This is ridiculous.
Right.
And I've also, now it's all business things that also is very educational in the process. So it's a little bit less dooming, and I've learned quite a bit. But I'd highly recommend people to take control of what shows up in that feed.
That's right. Control your algorithm, or it'll control you.
That's good parting wisdom. Tom, thank you so much for being part of this community. It's very good to see you. Hopefully we'll get some more New Jersey participation and some pride out of people recognizing that there's people like you right in our backyard. I think you like to know. I think you know that we like to end on the high five. So on the count of three, give me the high five. 1, 2, 3.